This is a Tibet House member video and is a part of the Force for Good class series, now available at tibethouse.us.
So there's said to be 10 opportunities and 8 liberties. And oh yeah, I should say, also this Lam Rim stuff is unpacked in the 3-volume set, edited by Joshua Cutler, published originally by Snow Lion Press, and now probably republished by Shambhala Publications, since Snow Lion merged with Shambhala Publications. In case you want to see more detail, you can look at that. And they're quite elaborate, the way they analyze where different human cultures have reached, although they don't really plug in the desert things the way I would like to do necessarily. Anyway, and so that this is a really valuable thing, and that there is some point to not just live for the purpose of this life, as it is said, takes a little thinking about for us. Even if we believe that we had a previous life, and we have a kind of conviction or faith or ideology that says, yes, we're going to have a future life, which is a very great step for us in this culture. It may be that we are not fully viscerally feeling that. You know, like we're thinking of it as a religious thing, having a former and future life, like a soul destiny, and we're like the people in the churches whose sense of reality is formed in their science classes, and they think of religion as a kind of palliative thing where they can go and make themselves feel better, but it's not really realistic. The realistic thing is what they hear in the science classes from science or from science writers. And scientists assure people in this culture that there is no future life for consciousness. That's kind of an assurance. You can look to Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Steven Pinker, Carl Sagan, of course, in his day. You can look to any of these popularizers or authorities in scientific academia, and they will assure you that you cannot have a future life, which means not that you have to agree with them necessarily consciously, but because we've been brought up like that, we still are kind of only living for this life, because we don't have a consensual feeling, like a matter-of-fact feeling about former and future life. We think it's kind of a woo-woo thing. Oh, maybe, oh wow, maybe I can be Cleopatra in the future life. Or the president, or whatever it is. It's like a woo-woo thing, rather than a normal thing. And not only a normal thing, but an inescapable thing, actually. Completely inescapable. So we don't think of it that way. But we think of some realistic thing, like matter, or like cancer, or like, you know, Alzheimer's, or our neurons are being depleted, or whatever it is, or eating the wrong diet. We think of that, that's realistic, because that's dealing with the material things that we're confronted with now, you know. So we think it's realistic to be concerned with the purpose of this life, in short, and unrealistic to be concerned with what might happen to us in a future life. So this is completely wrong from the Buddhist point of view, and I have something to say about it lately, that it took me years of dealing with it. It was so powerful in my own consensual thing. I think I told you all the story, didn't I, about where my original teacher, caught me meditating one night, late at night, after I was already a Buddhist monk. I told you, you know that story. Everyone knows that story? No? Some people don't? Well, okay, well then those who've heard it before will have to bear with me. I was meditating late, and I had to sneak around in that particular monastery in New Jersey, because that teacher had an uncanny ability to interrupt me when I was meditating. It was his like main thing he would always do. And so I was 4 o'clock in the morning, like fresh back from having been living with the Dalai Lama in India, with my monk's robes, my shaved head. I was sitting there meditating with a candle in the temple, or building that we had built before I would go into India. Hi, how are you, Christy? And he came in and snapped on the light. What are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm meditating. Why are you meditating? Well, what do you mean, why am I meditating? I'm a Buddhist monk. I want to become enlightened. He said, oh, he said, you can't get enlightened. You're an American. And I said, what do you mean? I believe in former and future life. I'm I'm a yogi, blah, blah, blah. And he kept after me. And I realized he was absolutely right. And probably because of that, it's only in the last few years that I've come to realize something about this false sense of materialistic realism, false realism of materialism, which is, when you debate someone like, and I have debated people like Steven Pinker and others, you debate them and say, well, how about your future life? We're going to have one, right? Then they say, well, what evidence do you have for that? They're very scientific, like, well, what's your evidence? So then you say, evidence is people remembering previous lives, and the idea also, secondarily, like the thermodynamics, the law of the conservation of energy. Mind flow is an energy. Why should that be the one energy that doesn't continue always? When you have the conservation of energy as a physical law. And mind, as a very subtle, albeit very subtle, is a kind of energy. How can you pick that out and say that one doesn't exist? So I used to do like that, and then they would just wag their head, oh, poor, crazy, old-fashioned, superstitious person. And a heretic of the consensual reality of our culture, which is that what's material is what matters. And that other stuff doesn't matter. It might be nice, might make you feel good, but it doesn't matter. Okay? So then you just don't get around to asking them, what is your evidence that you won't exist? Excuse me. But what evidence do you have that you're going to cease to exist just by dying? What's your evidence? And then what are they going to say? Actually, they'll kind of say, yeah, well, we know that. They'll say that. But then you say, how do you know that? Did Carl Sagan report that he doesn't exist? After he died, he came back and he said, I don't exist. He got on TV. I don't exist. You're cool. You can die and you just won't be here. Obviously not, because if he doesn't exist. He could conceivably report it like, oh, I made a big mistake. I'm existing. I'm a groundhog outside of where I used to have tenure at Cornell on the lawn there. I'm now reborn as a groundhog on the grounds of Ithaca, of Cornell University in Ithaca. If he could talk as a groundhog, he might report that. That's conceivable. But you can't report from nothing that you're nothing. You can't discover nothing. No scientist has ever discovered the nothing that anybody went into after dying. It, in fact, cannot be discovered, and not only is there no evidence for it, in principle, by simple common sense, there never will be evidence for it, ever. It's